Holy crap, Corsair has fans now. Corsair has two different types of fans in their new lineup. They have the AF series, which is short for airflow, optimized for free-flowing scenarios, and they have the SP series, which is optimized for scenarios where you need additional static pressure as opposed to just performance in a free-flowing environment. They are available in a variety of different sizes. So the airflows are available in 120 mil and 140 mil, and the static pressures are available in 120 mil. Now, you see what looks like a wide assortment of fans here, but what's cool about it is that it's not. Every one of these fans comes with 3 different colors of rings: blue, red, and white. So you can interchange them very, very easily just by taking off the ring and swapping it to whatever color you want. The other cool thing that is included with them is, oh right, not included, but can be included. Another cool thing is that you can buy them in a single pack, or you can buy them in a dual pack and save a couple bucks. So that's the lineup: 120 mils, 140 mils, airflows, static pressures, dual packs, single packs, and they all come with a variety of colors, with potentially more colors available in the future. One of the other ways Corsair's innovated on their fans is the use of very unique rubber fillers in the corners of the fan. So there's still an open corner fan in the sense that you can install fans easily between the corners. However, they are filled in with a hard rubber that is going to reduce the vibrations that are passed along to the case. All of the fans, besides coming with the colored rings, come with a noise reducer and 4 black screws. The last thing that we do want to mention is that they are available in a couple of different speed grades. So you can buy a quiet edition or a high performance edition, depending on whether you're looking for more airflow or more pressure, or if you're looking for a quiet optimized system. This system right here is where we're going to show you guys how we would make use of these fans in a 100% balanced system configuration. Let's take a closer look at our optimized machine. We're using a 550D case, which is Corsair's quiet computing case. However, it also gives you the option of removing the quiet panels and getting more performance by adding more fans. Inside, you see we've got lots of noise dampening. There's also lots of noise dampening on the inside of the case. But speaking of the inside of the case, that is where the magic happens, because putting together a cooling optimized machine is all about using the correct fan for the correct application. We're going to show you how Corsair has delivered all of the correct fans that you need to build a gorgeous system. So we've got a P8Z77V premium board in here featuring Thunderbolt, GTX 670. We've got 8 gigs of Corsair Vengeance memory, and this is Corsaired out to the nines. We've got an AX850 80 plus gold power supply. And how are we cooling this? We're going to show you exactly how. So, see right here, we got a drive cage. Drive cage means we are using a low RPM, so a quiet edition pressure SP fan in front of it, because we don't need a ton of performance, but we do need to get some flow, and we do have to push it past something that's kind of restrictive. We removed the second drive cage, and this is mostly just to show you guys, the point of what we're trying to demonstrate, in order to deliver more airflow to our graphics card. And we are using an AF series fan. Again, this is a quiet edition AF series fan in order to deliver that little bit of extra airflow directly to the intake fan on our graphics card, which then exhausts it right out the back of the case. On the back of the case, we're using an AF series fan again, but we're using the 140 millimeter version because this case supports a 140 mil at the back. So use a 140 whenever you can. Finally, on our H100 water cooling radiator, we are using 2 SP series, so static pressure series high performance fans, but we're undervolting them. That gives us the option to run it in quiet mode right now, or by turning the fan speeds up to ramp it up and get ultimate performance out of that liquid cooling unit. So guys, if you are serious about designing and manufacturing your own fans, let me tell you, you're going to need one of these bad boys. This is a Longwind LW9266, and what this allows you to do is accurately and repeatably measure the exact performance of a given fan. while it doesn't allow you to measure the noise levels of the fan, it does allow you to take a look at the other important performance aspects of it, including the RPM it's running at, the static pressure that it is able to produce. So that is in the most restricted possible scenario, where I take the fan and run it up against my chest and go like this. How much pressure is it exerting? As well as how much airflow it can produce in a completely open environment. Remember, both of these numbers are important because if you're running in a case, you want the most possible free airflow, so that is CFM. And if you're running against something like a super restrictive heatsink or radiator, which I happen to have one lying right here, in order to push the air through that, you want the most possible pressure. Now, in most scenarios, you want something that's a bit of a balance between the two. So what you end up with is a pressure versus CFM curve according to the fan speed of the fan. So this particular test we're running is we're taking all of our test fans here, and we're starting at 7 volts and working, or sorry, 5 volts, and working our way all the way up to 12 volts, and we are looking at the pressure versus CFM curves in order to find the sweet spot for which ones perform really well at low RPMs in pressure scenarios and which ones perform really well for free flow. So as a reminder, pressure is good for heat sinks and radiators, and flow is good for using as an intake or an exhaust fan in your case. Let's take a look at the setup of the machine that I'm borrowing, by the way, guys. I did not buy one of these for tech tips. That did not happen. But I'm borrowing this machine, so we've got a 120mm cutout on this plexi panel right here. And what that means is that we don't have any unnecessary air leakage around the fan. That really helps us to accurately measure the, especially the pressure. With the CFM, it's not going to make quite as much of a difference. But what this machine does is, oh, okay, no, I'm getting ahead of myself. So we're plugged in here. We can plug in either a 3-pin or 4-pin fan. It can test it anyway, so we're just going through our pile of fans that are to be tested here. Just bolt them in like this, no big deal. Let's move around to this side. Okay, so here we get the graphs that it's actually kicking out in real time. So this is the voltage we're running right now. And then these are all of the different runs that we're doing at various voltages. So I'm going to explain this graph a little bit. This is the static pressure. So you're going to have the highest pressure point when there is the least airflow. So this guy corresponds to this one. This yellow one corresponds to this red one. So as the airflow goes up, the static pressure goes down. I hope you guys can sort of understand that, because when you take the fan and you restrict the airflow as much as possible, all that energy is being used to create pressure. Whereas when you have no pressure on it whatsoever, every spin of the blades is used to move air around rather than pushing on anything. So that's why those curves run that way. So we're running those according to all the different voltage settings in order to get the most complete possible picture of how these fans are going to perform. Now, if you see these tubes around here, these are used to create back pressure on the fans. So these simulate all the different steps here in terms of how much restrictiveness there is on the fan. So if you wanted to, for example, recreate a real-world scenario, you might take something like a radiator that you wanted to know something about. You run it on here to determine what the resistance of this radiator is, and then you can take any fan, find that resistance point here, and determine what the CFM flow is going to be through that fan. And that is how you'll optimize a fan for a particular application. It takes a lot of trial and error, a lot of engineering, and we are going to find out just how well all these different fans line up here and how close the rated specifications from the manufacturer are to what you actually get delivered in the box, because these numbers do not lie. Now guys, while I wish we had a proper anechoic chamber, the purpose of this part of the test is just going to be to validate, relative to each other, how all of these fans stack up. So while we do have the proper testing procedure for the CFM as well as the pressure, sound is just going to be a relative measure. The reality of it is, unless you have an extremely expensive anechoic chamber, I mean, we're talking like the cost of the machine I showed you before is nothing compared to the chamber you would have to build to test something that claims to operate at 9 decibels. Like, I don't even know if that exists. So we're just going to see relative to each other how they all stack up. So stay tuned. I'll show you guys the performance charts as an overlay in just a moment here. But I just want to show you guys briefly the setup that we're using. So we have an isolation box within this room that has noise dampening foam sort of scattered throughout it. The noise floor in here is approximately
31.
31 decibels. So that is as low as we can get in this room, unfortunately. Just so you guys know, this is the machine that we're using to create the graphs and analyze the results from the tests in the chamber that is on the other side of it. Now, when it comes to rating a fan for performance, okay, so you want to do an optimized build, you want to have pressure where you need it, you want to have airflow where you need it. So you can just look at the specs of fans and that'll tell you everything you need to know, right? Wrong, because I can tell you guys right now, okay, I'm going to hold up some fans here. I'm not going to name any names, hold up some fans here. I'm going to hold up, this is a Yatloon actually. They were bang on in every spec that they had for their fan because they're a huge OEM. Hold up some more fans, hold up some more fans. Even some very reputable fan manufacturers, according to the test equipment that we had our hands on, are not performing up to their spec. Now, these graphs right here, these are PQ curves. You are going to be able to download these in the link below the video, and you can examine them yourself and have a look at what the manufacturer's ratings are like compared to the performance that is actually achieved. So up here is pressure in millimeters of water. So that is at the point where there's no airflow moving through the fan anymore because there's so much back pressure against it. So that's the maximum static pressure. Down here, you see airflow in CFM. So that is where there's no resistance whatsoever. What CFM can it achieve? So a CFM optimized fan, such as the AF120 Performance, will do really well here, but then gets destroyed when the pressure goes up, whereas something like a Corsair SP120 Performance only has the same airflow as an AF, but delivers more than double the pressure when the situation calls for it. So you guys can download these. These are at 12 volts. We also have another version of our graph at 7 volts, so you can see how they perform in an undervolted scenario. 7 volts is the most common undervolt that most people run, because a lot of fans have trouble starting at 5 volts, even though I personally like 5 volts and fans that run at it. So you can see how they all perform when they're undervolted and how they all perform at their stock voltage. The last thing that we're going to have available as a download is this fan noise graph. So this noise graph is, once again, relative comparison. This is not the be-all and end-all because we didn't have a perfect sound measuring chamber. However, it should be noted that nobody does. So where some of these ratings are coming from is like magical fantasy la la land, to be perfectly 100% blunt. There's no such thing as a fan that runs at 7 decibels or 9 decibels. It doesn't exist. So this is what we measured on all of the fans in our test. And this is the sound floor, so everything was louder than the sound floor, whether anybody likes that or not. I think that this should give you guys a pretty good idea of what to look for when you're shopping for fans and how to optimize your system. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode about, holy crap, Corsair has fans now, and don't forget to subscribe to NCIX Tech Tips.